Serious, in the spirit of October, what's the creepiest or most paranormal experience that has happened to you? On a week-long drive from California to Alabama, my family would stop at around 7 in the evening at camping sites. We set up our tents, made dinner, slept as much as possible, and packed up the next morning at about 8. One day, we stopped earlier than usual and got set up. Some of us kids explored the area. The lot we were on was on the top of a hill, and down the side of it was nothing but woods. Just before bed, my brother said he saw something in the woods, a tall human figure with glowing eyes and one arm reaching at least 10 feet in the air to hold the branch of a tree. We searched the area and came to the conclusion it was a bird or possum giving off the eyes, and a gangly tree creating a somewhat human shape that my brother's brain filled in the dark. Later that night, as we were on the edge of sleep, a loud, blood-curdling screech came from the forest, maybe only 100 yards away. My dad went out to the other tent to check on the others, but I laid as still as possible listening for something. I slept with my hand on my Bowie knife under my pillow. The next morning, we did some research and concluded it was a possum that made the screech. Later I learned of the screams pumas can make. Either way, I was more than happy to get out of that campsite and back on the road. When I was a kid, my twin brother and I would have the same nightmares. In our nightmares, we would be threatened by a poodle. Our mom also told us that she had seen the silhouette of a man in the hallway when nobody was there. I swear my grandparents' house has some poltergeist in there. Sometimes after family events I'd end up staying the night there. One night I hear something by the wardrobe. It was really late, so everyone else would have been asleep. Then the door flies open for no reason. No windows were open or pets. Then the light swings a bit. I slam the lights on and it stops. There's always some kind of noise at night there. Too big to be rats or pets and too light to be any elderly person. It's not that creepy, but when I was in 2nd grade at my grandma's, I realized that the kitchen lights were still on after brushing my teeth. As I'm walking down the stairs, I hear silverware being put away, clinking together. The moment I turn the corner to look into the kitchen, I hear a drawer quickly shut. Expecting to see my grandma, I was instead greeted by an empty kitchen. I've never been so confused before. I was feeding my then baby in her high chair. Behind her, in the middle of the living room, was her exosaucer. If you don't know what it is, it's basically a saucer with a little platform the baby sits in, props them up to stand and lets them wiggle around and play. Of course my baby only enjoyed going around the outside of it, but that's not the story today, that's just a baby thing. Anyways, all alone in this 100-year-old building, old for North American on average, thank you. Trying not to think of all the spectral bride situations potentially in the building when it happens. No one else in the apartment. I know for a fact the people below us are not there, and even if it doesn't explain what happens next because that motherfucking accursed thing moves. It's as if it was suddenly kicked underneath it. This isn't a neighbor banging on the ceiling and making the thing move situation. There was no sound before. No sound after. It just jolted like someone out of nowhere hit or kicked it, and there was nobody around. Freaked me the fuck out. It was a beautiful apartment, but oh my god, did things fall apart there. I bet it really was a spectral bride situation in the end. When my little sister and I were little, we used to stay home alone. My mom would work from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and my dad would work from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. My parents' room upstairs used to be the only room to have a TV, so my sister and I would frequently stay in that room rather than ours. One day while we were sitting upstairs talking, we weren't watching TV, so the house was quite silent. We both heard a clear and audible voice of our father calling our names and telling us to come downstairs. My sister, being the kid that she was, immediately starting climbing off the bed to go downstairs. However, I had a strange gut feeling that something wasn't correct. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't heard the garage, we didn't use the front door, open, or the fact that I hadn't heard the garage door that connected the garage to the inside close. It was kinda loud when shutting. Or maybe the fact that it was only 5:30 p.m. and my dad's work was an hour away, so it usually took him forever to get home. Anyways, I grabbed my sister and made her sit with me on the bed until my gut feeling went away. Well, we sat there until around 7 when I finally heard the garage open and the garage door slammed shut. Once again, I heard my father yell our names and call us downstairs. Once we got there, my sister asked him whether he had called us earlier. He looked confused and told us he'd just gotten here. This happened years ago, so I had chalked it up to being a figment of my imagination until just a few years ago my sister mentioned the same exact incident to me without me even uttering a word about it. She mentioned how the voice was clearly my dad's, and it said the same thing my dad said, and how my sister somehow felt like she needed to go downstairs. I don't know what that was or whether it was even paranormal. I've had a few other incidents too, completely unrelated though, but all I know is that if I had let my sister go that day, I'm not sure she's still be with me today. Claptrap and superstition. I got cut on the cheek by a poltergeist. Years ago me and my family went to Ireland and stayed in a castle which was super cool. Had everything you think a castle would have, a moor room, long-ass creepy hallways, a motherfucking dungeon, a cliffside stable. It was pretty cool. So hours of checking this place out and the surrounding area, the first day came to close. Me and my sister were roaming around figuring what room we should stay in, when she got a great idea to stay in the dungeon. There were in fact beds in there, so we did. Super creepy BTW. We scooted our bed together, which were made out of some bulky ass wood, but the bed was surprisingly comfortable. It takes me a while to get to sleep anyway, so I spent a good 30 minutes just looking around. Candlelight flickered around me as studied the room. Mainly for spiders because I wasn't having it. Then I heard footsteps. Slowly coming down the hall. Lightly stepping closer. I shook my sister awake and told her to listen, making sure I wasn't hearing shit. She heard it too. But she got up thinking it was our mother fucking with us. She turned the corner and screamed, which drove me under the bed in no time flat. She went into the room laughing because she screamed at a standing Amur dude. Shrugging it off and forgetting the footsteps, classifying it as it's just the sound of the castle settling. Yeah, I know, highly unlikely. But it calmed me nerves and I went back to focusing on sleep. I finally slipped into unconsciousness. Flashes of light and a slipstream of images I couldn't make out, and the last thing I saw in my dream was something slashing at my face. I was shook awake. I was soaked, nay drenched in sweat, with a jagged cut on my cheek which had to be pointed out to me because I couldn't feel it. Apparently I was shouting for something to get away FPR me in my sleep, and my sister, seeing my face, freaked and awoke me. Looking at my pillow to see if anything could have cut me. Nothing. My mother came in and was horrified. My dad was already in the car. Needless to say, we got TF out. I can't explain how I got it. I still have the scar to this day. Very faint, but you can still see it. I'm not going to sleep in castles again. I got a confession letter, which I got in my desk. I burned it without opening or a second thought during recess. After school on my way home. I find another letter on my study desk, but its red smells of burnt hair and seems to be blood. Made me vomit and I burn it on the gas. I'm fuck scared cause I go to an all-boys school. The only girls I know are my mom and a cousin. I'll have to see what happens tomorrow. Haven't told my friends and parents yet. A few days ago I got stuck home alone, so called one of my friends. I heard a car and checked to see if my mom and her BF were home. They were not. But there was a tall man I saw walking away from my door. He was whistling. I thought he looked familiar. Turns out he was the man who decided he would sneak into my backyard. My backyard is gated, and press his face up against my glass back door at 10 o'clock at night. Mine's not creepy, but paranormal, yes. When I first moved into the last house I lived in, we had just bought a dog. This next part is important. She had a collar, but no tags. She didn't have tags that would jingle. She made no noise when she walked. Late one night when my mom was sleeping, I was laying in my bed with my dog. I heard a jingling noise like tags on a dog's collar. It obviously wasn't my dog, because she was in my bed staring into the hallway where the noise came from. It didn't scare me at all because it just sounded like the spirit of an animal that was stuck in the house or stuck to something of my mom's. The two potential possibilities are a cat or my mom's old dog. The woman who owned the house before us had lived there for quite some time and had several cats that passed in the house. My mom had a dog that she picked out and that she bought when she was 15, and it had died several years prior. We had just moved out of her old house, where her dog lived. My mom later told me she had heard jingling sounds frequently near her bed and felt like something had jumped up on her bed while she was sleeping. My dog always slept in my room with the door closed. Whether it was my mom's dog or a cat or the previous owner, neither of us felt scared or uncomfortable. It was almost comforting that there was an animal spirit roaming our house. We hadn't heard the sound again for a few years, so hopefully that means the spirit was able to peacefully move on. We moved to our old house, the same one we lived in before, and haven't heard anything since we moved here, so I'm pretty sure it was my mom's old dog, Chloe.